Welcome to Pigeon River Farm, doing farming right. I'm Robert Brown, the owner of Pigeon River Farm. Thank you for viewing. Well, good afternoon. In this episode, we're going to talk about where we're at on a hybrid tractor project, the progress we've made over the last couple months, and to demonstrate that we're actually at the point now that we have a functional, from an electrical standpoint, prototype that's ready to go to the next level. So we are capable at this point now of going ahead and spinning the motor. Pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting on our front here. So the main controller is up, it's programmed, and now we have our governor. So that is our governor assembly, and what that basically is going to do is going to allow the tractor or this system to work integrated in a tractor or a system that has a governor on it. So when you think about your driving your car, you're simply pushing the throttle on and off to gain and reduce speed to climb a hill. In the case of a tractor or any other type of equipment that is designed to have a governor on, you normally have a fixed throttle. So you're going to take your throttle, you're going to put it to a specific point, and then you're expecting within the horsepower range of that engine to stay steady. So it's going to stay, if you're at 3 miles an hour, we want to stay at 3 miles an hour, and you'll just, the engine will apply more power or less power as far as throttle opening, or in the case of a diesel, more fuel through the injection pump, and allowing the engine to produce or reduce the power and maintain the speed. So with electric environment, that's not an option. So what we've done is we've built a governor system that actually is going to mimic the same thing as we would have on the governor that's on this tractor. And by doing that, by having a system that's in place to do that, we now are going to be able to lock in the throttle when it's in the electric mode, and it will maintain up to the rate at which this motor is capable. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and we'll turn this on. Take a moment for it to boot. Now I have a auxiliary throttle here that just simply wired in temporarily for this application. And you can see we're going to go ahead and spool up the motor. And you can see we have that square wave. So we have that square wave, and that square wave, what that's doing is just simply the length of time the electricity is being applied to the electric motor. It's called duty cycle. So it's pulse width modulated duty cycle to the motor, and that's what's going to control the speed at which the motor operates, and the more that's on based on that speed, on how our governor controller works, it'll just simply apply more and more and more electricity till it hits a maximum point. And when it hits a maximum point, just like your gas or diesel engine will hit a certain point, and then it will simply reduce. In this case here, we will simply trim back the current, and if it got to an overload condition, we will simply stop the current from flowing and damaging the motor or putting excessive power to the tractor. Since this motor here, this Warp 9 hybrid motor, is also used in a drag racing environment. So you gotta think electric motors are quite different than a gas or diesel. They're probably a little closer to a diesel dynamic. And what happens here is that motor is capable of producing around 500 horse for 30 seconds. And then of course it would go to thermal limit, it would get overheat. Under a light load, 10, 20, 30 horsepower, it can run indefinitely. So there's no problem whatsoever of functionality. But how it's controlled is through that length of time that the power is being applied. Since we have 144 volts here, we have 12 deep cycle industrial lead acid batteries in this particular application, and that is a lot of power. So speaking of power, let's talk about the next section here. Whenever I'm working on this system, there's no cover currently built, we will be building a cover. So it's when it's in this mode, I have to make sure that I put on my high voltage gloves. That's how all work is done over in this area. So if any task is being performed in the development here, once these cables and batteries are hooked up, I must wear my 1000-volt gloves. These are the same gloves that I use when I'm working on a Prius. If it was a Tesla, it doesn't matter. They all work the same way. This technology is, I guess in some respects, relatively old. In the agriculture industry, it's relatively new. But we got to think about hybrid, high voltage cars that have been out now for, geez, going on 20 plus years in the service environment, and none of the terrible things have happened. But technicians need to understand what they're working on. So again, in this environment. So once we have a enclosure, and our plan for the enclosure is simply would be a perimeter with I'm thinking about a polycarbonate top on it so I can still see everything and be able to make my adjustments as needed. Eric has done an awesome job on the development of the governor board, and we are currently sending out for the next rendition. It will be a final rendition of the board. So the board will go into a case. It'll be very similar to the amp display. Currently that's just simply turned on. It's not measuring any current. We did verify with the scope that everything is working along that line. So once this is actually completed, and as you can see in this video here, this is an illustration or an animation of how the board is actually going to work. All the components that are on it. So that's what's going to be built in the next couple of weeks. And once that's done, we'll harden off the wires. So everything that is basically just kind of hand temporarily put in here will all be hardened off, and we'll get our throttle system in place, and it will be ready to test. So my timeline here is looking at this spring. I normally try to frost seed the pastures somewhere in that March timeline. So our plan is in that March timeline, I want to be able to frost seed the pastures utilizing the hybrid tractor running in the electric mode. So I hope this was beneficial. You got something out of it. Stay tuned. We'll have more coming. Make sure you subscribe so you stay informed. And I thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.